Hi, everybody. My guest today is Ben Bondar. And if you want to hear about some of the moments that really were eye opening for him in terms of inspiring him to get sober, this podcast is for you. And if you want to have a better understanding, about how fashion can affect your mental health, this podcast is for you. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, friends. Welcome to season 2 of the Broken Open podcast. I'm Maureen Towns, author, speaker, and expert on finding calm amidst the chaos of helping those you love with mental health and addictions issues. If you like what you hear on this podcast, please be sure to subscribe so that you're the first to know when new episodes are released. And visit MaureenTowns.com to get in touch, to stay current on our programs, Footsteps for Families and Freedom from Intergenerational Trauma, as well as any updates on the book, Broken Open. Enjoy the show. Okay, Ben, I think we're live. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Absolutely.
So, Ben, you and I don't know each other super well. We met at a CrossFit gym.
Yes.
And then I haven't seen you in a little while because our gym was closed, of course, during quarantine. And suddenly, there you were, popping back up in my social media because you host a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that.
So I host Fashionably Sober. And that essentially stemmed from the idea of, being in a quarantine situation and wanting to connect to people with similar experiences within the realm of addiction or self-recovery, but not so much fellowship-based. I think when I started my recovery process, came out of treatment, and it was very much, the whole like 90 meetings in 90 days thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then so years go by, and I kind of like am exploring my sobriety and everything, and I kind of just ended up kind of outgrowing the whole kind of fellowship system in a sense. But I still wanted to have that connection with people, but didn't really know how to do it. And it even helped even more in a quarantine situation that a lot of people are listening to podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of was like an opportunity that I saw that I took advantage of, and it's kind of growing from there.
Fantastic. Good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
I like the way you phrased that you kind of outgrew the 12-step fellowship as a base for your recovery. And I find that really common. There are people who are, I'm going to call them diehard 12-step, this is it for me. And congratulations, that's awesome. Yeah. But for so many people, it ends up being certainly a part of their recovery and their approach, but then they also draw from so many other places. And I like that you've set up your own platform to find what you need in terms of connecting with other people in sobriety. It's fantastic.
And that's why I think it's really important to I will always credit AA for where I am today. Yeah. And that has been a fundamental part of my recovery. But thinking back 4 years, 4.5 years, I would have never thought this is what my recovery looks like now.
For sure.
Right. And then that just kind of comes from life experiences and being curious and questioning everything. And I think that also stemmed from the fact that I grew up in the Catholic education system.
Yes.
And having the identity of my sexuality so young, I really started to challenge the mythology behind it. And then so bridging those pieces together, I was kind of you know what, I sense a lot of this, and I'm just going to try new things. And I think maybe that's also why I'm in recovery, was because I was so open to trying new things that led to addiction and bad habits like that, but it's turning your character defects into positive traits for you. And I'm not living my sobriety to redeem myself from a life of, you know, ill manner and bad behavior. It's like, I'm sorry that that's what it was like, and I will acknowledge that, but like, let's move on and realize how much I can do now.
Yeah.
That I'm not tied to a bottle or a straw or anything.
Yeah, it sounds like you have a really strong and probably have for a long time internal locus of control, so that you have a strong sense that you can decide, that you can choose, that you can inquire, you can pursue, you know, and coming from probably a Catholic school background, which I did too, by the way, you know, and needing to sort of step outside the dogma of the Catholic Church, right, to be who you are,
Yeah.
probably helped you along that path.
And even questioning things from such a young age really helped me stick to AA. Because there is a lot of, you know, the God word thrown around there and everything.
Yeah.
A lot of people in treatment were like, oh, I don't do God, I'm turned off from that. And I think a lot of people are turned off from AA because of the terminology that's used. But I was okay with it because I've always questioned the definition of God, and I've always seen it as something outside of Jesus.
Yeah.
So when they're like teaching me how to, you know, understand my sobriety or a path of it, I was okay with accepting, yeah, I can say God and not be like defensive about it.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Well, I mean, the language is from the 30s, right? I mean, there's going to be stuff in there that just does not jive with how we talk, how we think. You know, it's very old thinking in terms of even the word defective character. I mean, it sounds like something we want to reject, which, you know, I mean, the new approach is accept all of you.
Yeah. And I felt like crap every time I was using. So why am I wanting to be sober and feeling like bad for myself of the way I used to be? So
yeah, let's talk about how awful I am. Yeah, that's interesting. So I'm going to start with the broken open question. Let's dig into it. So Ben, tell me about a time, or take us to a moment when you were experiencing something very, very difficult that at the time felt catastrophic, the end of the world, and in hindsight has proven to be a real gift to you.
I actually was thinking about this question a lot, because you read the question and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, like that's really easy. But then once you start thinking about it and you start reflecting on it, it became such this like multifaceted kind of direction that I was heading in, where obviously I want to talk about, you know, addiction and substance abuse. But every time I kept tracing back my addiction, my sexuality kept coming up. And then so I started tracing back my sexuality, and I realized how much those two kind of like coincide with each other. Where I don't want to get it misconstrued that like, you know, I had substance abuse issues because I'm gay. But there was definitely substance abuse issues because I was gay. You know, growing up, facing kind of the society pressure of looking a certain way in the gay community, coming from a societal standpoint, and then also having that pressure within the community itself, of having the six pack, having the full head of hair, you know, being super fashionable and like loving everything extravagant. When you're genetically not like that, that has a lot of, you know, pressure on you to kind of distract yourself from the fact that you don't fit into that community that you're trying to fit into.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's I don't know if I might be like too vague with your question, but it really does stem from those. I feel that my substance abuse was when I came into like the whole community, it was like when I was 18 years old, where because I didn't have the six pack, I would drink excessively because I didn't fit into this community. And then so from there, it stemmed into like my addiction.
So when did you know you were gay?
So I think I started saying I was like bi when I was bisexual when I was like 12. Just kind of like having that awareness. So I came out actually when I was in grade 9, so 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And that did not go well at all with my parents.
Okay.
They were very much under the belief that they would never have grandchildren. It was them coming together that did something wrong. And also, my older brother, he's gay too. So he came out before me, but he never told me he was gay. Like, I had to come out to him to tell him, and then he told me. And I think it kind of like was a challenge that way.
So your parents already knew that your brother was gay, and then you came out and said, well, I'm gay. And they saw a loss of them becoming grandparents, etc., in that.
Yeah.
And struggled with that. That's interesting. Do you just have one brother?
I have the brother, and then I have an older sister. So she's
okay. Yeah. Okay.
This is bringing me back to a conversation like I was having with my mom, and she was like, you know what, like, I think you're gay because of the TV you're watching.
Interesting.
So I want you to stop watching Will and Grace and stop watching Queer Eye. Like, but the weird thing is that they wouldn't allow me to watch wrestling. So I would have to watch that on mute, even though that's kind of like a testosterone driven environment, even though they're all in like tights and really hot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hilarious. That's interesting. So how are your parents now with you being gay?
They're incredible. They're amazing. Like, my parents, like, obviously I don't want to talk about someone that can't defend themselves when they're not here, but my parents often struggle with, adjusting to situations that are outside of the realm. And they do take some time to get used to it, and I totally understand that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've definitely come around. And it's funny too, my brother and his husband now have a child, and my sister has a child, so my parents are like double grandparents now.
They're thrilled now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's all okay.
That's fantastic. I really relate to the, it's so ingrained, with I'm thinking about when I dreamt of having a family. You have a vision in your head of how it's going to go, and it doesn't go that way. It just never does. And there is a transition period there where you have to learn how to let go of the way you thought things were going to be. The belief that you are responsible for the way everything's turned out, right? So you can see, like, they're trying to find the reason for, like, what did they do and what did they not do, and how can they control the environment to make things go the way they think they're supposed to go, like stop watching Will and Grace, and sort of accepting that they can't control it, and then learning to get down to what matters, really, right? They love you.
Yeah.
I love my kids. None of them are doing what I thought they were going to do. None of them have taken a path I thought they were going to take, one that I thought was really important.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, looking back, the way I look is like, man, it's a good thing that I'm not in charge, because I could never have made things this awesome.
Oh, I love that. That's so awesome.
But it would have been very boring. Like, if things had gone the way I thought that they were supposed to go, everyone would be living, inside this box, and
they'd be accountants and doctors.
Yeah, and working and probably miserable, but working and 40 hours a week and in a relationship with a house and like all the things that I thought needed to happen in order for everything to be okay. Like, I just couldn't let go of that for a long time, and it felt like a crisis.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like, so much is happening that's outside of your control all of a sudden that you're not prepared for.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to fix that. Like, I never thought of, like, my parents reflecting on the fact that it was because of them, so they would kind of start criticizing their actions while also being concerned about how to control mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like, I mean, I have yet to meet a parent who does just like rack their brain over, what did I do wrong or what did I not do right that has taken us in this direction, really, right? And it's like, I mean, it's nothing. Like, my kids laugh because I'm always joking about my son Ben, who, when we realized that he had a problem, I couldn't say addiction. He was using drugs a lot and he wasn't doing well, but I couldn't say addiction. I would lay awake at night thinking, like, going over and over and over, like every moment of his childhood that I could remember, trying to figure out what was the thing that I should have done differently. Like, crazy thinking. Like, and I what I concluded was, and this is in the book, that, well, when he was in grade 2, his reading comprehension wasn't very good. And I knew it. And his teachers told me, and they told me that I should be reading aloud to him every night, but I didn't. And our house was crazy chaos and we were tired and he hated it and I hated it and I didn't follow through. And that then led to poor self-esteem, which led to drug abuse. And now he's going to be an addict forever. Good job, Maureen. Like,
It's like those old 90s cops where they have like all the photos on the evidence wall and they have the strings attached. You're like, I got it.
exactly. It's just like that. And we have such a craving for that. This must be because of this.
Yeah.
Because it gives us a sense of control when things feel very out of control and very scary.
It gives us a label to attach it to. But then really when I'm thinking about what you're talking about, you still can't fix it. Like, even if it was reading comprehension challenges when he was in grade 2, there's literally nothing you can do. So you just kind of, does that give you like a sense of like being a victim? So then you feel,
yeah, what does that do for me, right?
It? Yeah.
I think I just wanted to know what it was. And I was really convinced that I was a crappy mom. Like, it must be because I'm a shitty mom. And yet I knew that I was doing all the things. Like, I'm looking at it. I remember saying to my husband at the time, stupid people raise good kids. What's our deal? Like, we're both, why are our kids failing so miserably in life? Like, we're both educated. We love each other. We have a stable home. They have lots of opportunities. What is happening here? But it's, I don't know, it's a really egocentric view that, and you're brought up to believe that if you have Sunday dinners and you work on self-esteem and they have, team sports and you sign their agenda every night, like, it's all gonna go well, and so when things go sideways, you're like, what, and I remember when my kids were younger too, and I imagine your parents are probably around my age. My kids were younger, and I remember sort of thinking, what if my kids end up, being gay? And I thought, I would worry about them. That was my concern. I will worry about them because life is going to be really hard. Now, it's not like, that's a conception of what I knew when I was a kid. They're not going to be able to have kids, or they're going to be,
they're going to get AIDS, or
they're going to get AIDS. They're going to be on the fringe of society. Yeah. They won't be accepted. They'll, and that was my worry.
Yeah.
Is that's a difficult path.
And that was like literally me coming out to my mom, sitting on my bed after doing math homework, and I was kind of like fake crying just to like get some sympathy from her. Like, I can see it as if it was yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what she said to me, was that I'm worried about your safety and I don't want you to get AIDS. And like, I get it was like a knee-jerk reaction, and obviously the understanding of, medication and the advances we have in science now. Yeah. People can live long, healthy lives with HIV and everything, but I think that's definitely a reaction that is kind of normal in these situations.
Well, yeah, Well, yeah, it is unfortunate because you just don't know very much about
Yeah.
people who are gay, right? Like how they live. And so you just have this one idea, gay AIDS, so you probably watched the movie Philadelphia and she's probably like, oh my God, that's what you're in for, and same thing with me and the word addict. My association with the word addict was wandering the streets, pushing a grocery cart, talking to yourself, dirty, homeless, invisible. So I could not say that word in association with my son, because what am I saying about him? Like, I just didn't know anything about it.
Has your conception
Terrifying.
of that word changed?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
See, that's exactly what I was like when I came out of treatment. It is so much easier to say I'm an alcoholic than it is to say I'm an addict, when really it was drugs that led me to rehab. Like, again, from a series of unfortunate events, but because of the social stigma of what society presents to me as an addict, and that's exactly how you describe them too.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, that's not me, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with this title.
Yeah. Whereas now I see it very much. We're all addicted to stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone. It's all a spectrum to me now. It's all a gradient, right?
Mm-hmm.
I everyone's trying to self-soothe, in different ways. Some of them are really socially acceptable, and some of them are not. Some of them will destroy your relationships with others. Some of them won't. But we're all looking for it, right? Like, there's a reason why I watch Netflix and play Sudoku. I'm just trying to feel okay, man. Like, right? And so you just keep going until you find a thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's tough.
But
Sorry.
it's also kind of like acknowledging when that thing can become a problem. Sudoku could take you down a path where you're paying hundreds of dollars a month for Sudoku Premium, or and people don't see it that way because it's a game. Like, that's kind of like my beef with the fitness industry.
Yes.
Where people can exercise so much, and we really value people that exercise because we're like, oh, you're dedicated, you're determined, you're hardworking. And it's like, you're actually destroying your life because you're cutting everyone out because of the fitness that you're trying to achieve with the food that you're trying to control. And people don't see it. They think it's okay.
Oh, Ben, you can get addicted to volunteering. You can numb out in religion. Like, there's all kinds of things that we applaud people for doing that they are doing actually in a very destructive way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every strength can become a weakness, right? Like, it's a double-edged sword, and like I say, when you're starting to destroy your relationship with yourself, you're disconnecting from that, like who you are and what you're about. Like if I'm Sudokuing and I can't sit in how I'm feeling,
Mm.
or refusing to acknowledge that, that's a problem. Or I've got someone in front of me, but I can't connect with them because I'm so, on my phone. Like,
Yeah.
that's not cool. Like, that's not okay.
No.
So when did you know that you had a problem?
I think so it's kind of like an interesting thing. I think about my bottom line a lot, or my rock bottom, and how that kind of just like progressed throughout the times, where my rock bottom would always change as I hit that new rock bottom. Because I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, yeah. I remember
you lower the bar.
Yeah, and I remember this too so frequently, that like in my addiction, I literally had two voices, and not in like, a mental bipolar kind of sense, but more so like I would be walking into my dealer's house and be like, Benjamin, you're legit, like, look what you're doing. You're walking into a drug dealer's house to buy drugs.
Mm-hmm.
This is absolutely something you would have never done. Mm-hmm. And yet you're doing it and you're totally cool with it.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where it stemmed from. And also the fact that, like, it wasn't a problem until it impacted my loved one. And I've mentioned this before, where that kind of breaks down to such an identity, or like such a disrespect for myself, to be like, I don't care how hurt I'm being as long as it doesn't impact others.
Yeah.
And then it's like, that you literally don't give a crap about yourself. You know. So.
Well, and you might not be very honest or insightful about how that is impacting others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And but the funny thing about that, though, with that bottom line, every time it impacted my loved ones, I never cared.
Yeah, that's true. It's such a lie, right?
And I was like, oh, they're fine. But like, I went to Toronto to visit my friend, and this was when, like, you know, stimulants came into my life, like cocaine and everything. That put me back in the closet, because my friends weren't into drugs. They were totally into drinking, and that was cool. But once I started getting into stimulants, like I visited my friend in Toronto, like my best friend of 25 years. And she was like, you know, I'm worried that your mom, oh my goodness. She's like, I'm worried that your mom's going to call me and tell me that you've overdosed. And that moment, it broke my heart. I was like, I never want to make a loved one feel that kind of like fear when I'm voluntarily doing something. And I think that was the moment I was like, okay. So that was like kind of like the emotional moment. And then like the physical moment was at my parents' Christmas party, where I snuck drugs into the house and like did them in the bathroom. And the whole time before that, I was like, Benjamin, you're sneaking drugs into your parents' bathroom. That is so disrespectful. But I was like, yeah, let's do it. And I like blacked out and threw my shoes at the door and like woke up to the tin that I was hiding under my bed taped up. It was busted open, and I was doing an unknown amount of drugs. Unknowingly. And that was like legitimately my bottom line of like, I missed work. I could have died in my bed. I've had many, many nights with my heart pounding, being like, okay, do I actually call an ambulance right now? Like, I can't settle down. But then 5 minutes later, you're up doing more drugs. So I don't know if that answered your question, but.
Oh yeah, it sounds like you had a few moments where, you know, it kind of, the mirror was held up for you, and you saw things in a way that you hadn't before. Like, holy smokes, this is serious. And you know, what a gift those moments are. I call them moments of grace, you know, where you get to see, holy smokes, things aren't going well here.
It could have been so much worse. Like, I just think back to the situations I put myself in, and it's like, you could have died.
Yeah.
Like, multiple times you could have died. And yet, like, I've been thrown from vehicles because I got into a wrong vehicle. And the vehicle I got into had a little girl in the back seat, and it was at a red light, and the guy just like sped off, and I got tossed from the vehicle because I didn't know my dealer's vehicle because he kept changing it. And like, but like the weird, okay, this is totally sidetracking, but also on topic. I had this bakery across the street from where I was living, and I went in one morning to get like a croissant, and the owner was like, "How are you?" And I was like, "I'm good." She's like, "No, like, how are you?" And I was like, "I'm good." And she's like, "Well, because like the last time I saw you, you looked really rough." And I was like, oh my God, like my bagel lady is calling me out on my drug use right now. Like, I just want my salmon bagel, and yet here's this person that I don't even remember the last time I saw. I'm pretty sure there was blood on my face because it was 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, that was like actually a point of being like, people are noticing. You can't hide this shit anymore, Benjamin. Like, you have to say.
Yeah, you're right. Like when the bakery ladies worried, you know, like I hear you. That's a good one, man. That's a good moment. Like that's a because I can see it.
Yeah. And so like I went back like after treatment, and she was like, I was like, you know what? I wasn't doing well. And I want to thank you for asking me. And she was like, you look so much better. You look so much happier, healthier. Like I see life in your eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
And I will like always credit her for doing
that. That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's good you went back, man. It's nice to follow up and that stuff. So if you can hear a dog yipping, that's my dog.
I know, she's so cute.
Oh, he's being a bit of a goof right now, honestly. I don't know what his deal is, but anyways. So with your family, what have they done that's been especially on point in terms of support for you?
I think my parents they haven't given up, and they haven't just tried one method and stuck to that. You know, like I think back to like when I first came out of treatment, they're like, oh, we're gonna have like a huge supper for you. And I was like, oh, like I don't want to do this. Like I don't want to draw attention to me.
Yeah.
And you know, like my parents do have a tendency to like, you know, consume booze and whatnot, you know. I'm not saying it's genetic, but and everyone was sitting at the table and they all cheers with Perrier bottles. And I was like, I was like, okay, one, I've never seen my dad drink water ever. He's super weird. I've been one time my entire life I've seen him drink water. And two, like plastic clinking with plastic doesn't sound like anything. So it was all just like a weird silent cheers. And I was like, this is so fake. Like I'm like, sorry, I gotta go to a meeting. And I just like laughed.
Yeah.
But I think their strongest form of support is just allowing me to be me.
Ah, nice.
And I think that's because I didn't really give them an option. I come out to them at a very young age. I didn't ask to be gay. I was like, this is what's happening. And ever since then, they've given me like, I've always had so much freedom, even as a child. They would let me like go downtown when I was 12 years old on the train. And they really wanted me to form that sense of independence. And because of that, I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And they're like, okay, we don't get it, but like, we'll let you do it. And thankfully, I've been really successful with it. Like when I pursued fashion styling, they obviously had no idea what that meant. And I had to spend years trying to tell them what it was like being a stylist. And then they started to catch on. They're like, okay, we get it. And started asking more questions and being more involved. And even with my Fashionly Sober podcast, my mom sent me a really long message yesterday being like, I am so proud of everything that you're doing. And it's unconventional to them, but they're getting it and they're accepting that like he is who he is and we love him for it.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? This like I'm hearing what you're describing and I'm thinking about like I couldn't have planned how awesome my kids are. It wasn't in my imagination that this is how they'd be, you know. And I'm so like I'm hearing that in what you're telling me. You know, your mom loves everything you're up to, but she didn't even know it was a thing, right? So tell me about your journey into fashion. What's going on there, man? I didn't know this because I've seen you at the gym and you're wearing jeans, you know, shorts and a t-shirt, so I had no clue.
Okay, well, I still color coordinate. I still look good.
You look great. And so did I, and I'm not.
As we're both wearing black.
I know. I'm like, this guy's into fashion. I'm just gonna wear black.
So it was such a weird kind of like series of events where I struggled a lot in the industry identifying as a gay guy because I felt like that was such a limiting, one-dimensional, like, oh, you're gay, of course you're in fashion. And I'm like, no, like there's a lot of stuff to know about fashion. There's a whole business side of things. I had to be my own accountant, marketer, you know, creative and numbers. And I wanted to pursue it my entire life. I remember drawing pictures, really horrible pictures. I should find them and like burn them. Really bad pictures of just wanting to draw like beautiful clothes.
Yeah.
And I remember like draping the towel around me like in different ways and trying that out. But going into high school, there was a merchandising program. And I so wanted to take that, and that was going to be the coolest class ever. And I didn't, because I didn't want to be seen as gay.
Oh, wow.
And then that has always kind of stuck with me. And then it wasn't until I was like 2013 that I found a course in Calgary that I was able to get certification for fashion styling, whatever that means, certification in a creative industry. And then you just kind of hustle from there.
So you were a personal shopper at one point.
Yeah, so I would do personal shops and wardrobe edits, where it's easiest way to describe it to people was like the episode of What Not to Wear, or like that whole series where I come in, we go through your closet. I don't throw things in a trash bin, but we talk about what your goals are, kind of like, are you looking for a whole overload of a wardrobe, or are you looking for certain pieces? And then so we would find pieces in the wardrobe, piece them together, identify items that are missing, and then I would take you on a personal shop where you meet with me. I have pieces already picked out for you, and we go try them on and stem from there.
Awesome.
It was so cool, Maureen. So like, you think it's just like, a lot of people have the misconception that one, stylists are expensive. It's like, okay, I have a budget, but that's because I'm putting a lot of time into what I'm picking out for you, and I have a lot of knowledge backing that up.
Yeah.
And also, I work within your budget. So you give me your budget, and then I tell you what we can do within that. So yeah, I can take you to Holt's and we can go into the personal shopping section and have bottled water and everything.
Yeah.
But that's not the case for 99% of the people in Canada. You know, like, people need Winners and Walmart and, you know, Zara and those kind of places. And that's what I love talking with your son Sam.
Yeah.
Was that like, he looks really good. Like, I wouldn't ever like walk by him and be like, ew, that guy's so like, he has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
But like, he doesn't go to those places. He goes to Walmart and, you know, Joe Fresh and everything, and he still finds those items because now fashion is so much more accessible in a sense of price ranges.
Yeah. And I mean, that's interesting. I wanted to ask you a little bit about fast fashion, because I mean, there was a whole, it's been a while since I've heard anything about this, but the whole movement away from, you know, fast fashion, and the idea that you buy items that are only going to last 6 months and you just throw them away and get a new one, right? So the t-shirt only costs $8, so sure. And a movement, you know, how the environmental impact of that, and then the movement towards, you know, go somewhere a little more expensive, buy a shirt that's going to last 10 years as a staple and stick with it. What are your thoughts on that?
It was such a weird kind of like event where, you know, H&M and Zara come out, and why wouldn't you want an $8 t-shirt, or even like Old Navy? Old Navy is fast fashion because they're, you know, cheaply made too. But then once like this industry becomes this like weird conglomerate of items, they start releasing facts about, you know, the Bangladesh garment factories that burnt down in like what, 2014 or something like that, some year, where we've always turned a blind eye towards. And I think now there's so much more awareness about what is going into the items that we're putting onto our bodies, that whole industry is exposed. And I kind of get like the catch-22 of like, you don't want to save, you know, 2 months of money for a white t-shirt when you can just go out and get like a really cute blouse or like a suit for like $100. But when you think of it and how much you actually wear that suit and how that item makes you feel, it's not going to be the same as the high quality piece because you've actually invested money into this. So you have an emotional investment into the item that you're buying. And literally it comes down to construction. A Zara shirt is not going to stay as long as, you know, a shirt from Holt Renfrew. And it's kind of just bringing that awareness to people that it's an investment piece. And I think it's also a struggle of like, we're not in a time of investment pieces. You know, so yeah, it's a tricky.
It is tricky, and I bet it's very individual, you know. And so when you go shopping, or let's say you're just out wandering around and you see like a really distinct item, like, so it's like, oh my God, that's the coolest thing. It's unusual, and it's twice what I would normally spend on something like that. How do you calculate whether it's worth buying, or do you?
I'm always kind of under the assumption that you should buy now and return later.
Okay.
Like, buy it now, think about it, because if you don't get it and you go back, again, because fashion is quite recycled really fast and it's cyclical, the item might not be there. And that feeling sucks. Everyone knows it. We all have that one freaking item that is gone. And we're like, that would have completed everything.
Would have been perfect. Everyone would have loved me. Yes.
But I'm like, as you're asking me these questions, I'm thinking about like my style. Like I don't throw stuff out. I have had things for years and years, and I keep it, and I buy pieces that I will want to keep. So I think it's just kind of making the client aware of what is important to them in their wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, jackets are really important to me. Boots are really important from like a functional standpoint. Like, you should be spending more money on shoes because they will get the most wear out of any item of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
But my emotional kind of attachment I have to jackets and outerwear is something that might not relate to you. So I'm willing to drop a pretty penny on a jacket when you're looking for a purse. And that's kind of where fashion becomes a personal item.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always think of it from the point of view of, you know, for me, it's like $10 a wear. So if I'm looking at a pair of shoes that are $200 or whatever, I think, okay, can I see myself wearing these 20 times?
Okay, that's a lot of math. How do you do that? I wouldn't know. I always round down in price and up in age. That's it.
That's awesome. So yeah, that's the way I do it. Like if I look at a pair of shoes and I think, okay, will I wear these 20 times? Then $200 is not a problem at all. Mm-hmm. Can you just hold on 1 second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what do you do now, Ben? So you were doing the personal shopping. I saw in your write-up for your podcast that's your background. What are you doing right now during quarantine?
So that's the thing. That's kind of where the podcast stemmed from, is that, you know, financially, Canadians aren't spending money on items of clothing to go out. There's nowhere to go out. Mm-hmm. And I also kind of took away from like the fact that I did get jaded in a sense from the fashion industry of how much work goes into something for you to see no result of it. Mm. And I was doing photo shoots and I've been published in magazines, and you put so much emotion into these outfits and these images that you're creating for them to just be shot down. It was really hard to take rejection after rejection. So I think that's also kind of, you know, a gene of the birth to the podcast, is where I still want to talk about the emotional attachment with people. And like, being a personal shopper, I didn't know there was such an emotional attachment to wardrobes until I was out with people. I had one client and she was like, we were going through her closet and she was like, oh, well, I have to keep that because I was wearing that the day my appendix burst. And I was like, okay. I'm like, what about this? And she's like, oh, well, I wore that to the hospital as my appendix burst. I was like, okay. Like another one of my clients,
That's so
um,
interesting. I'd be like, we got to talk about your emotional attachment to your appendix because that's a
yeah.
problem.
And that's the thing. I had another client that recently completed transformation, as a transgendered woman, where she has lived 30 some years of her life in a body that wasn't supposed to be hers.
Right.
And then, so not only do you transition chemically and emotionally, but you are now dressing a body type that you've never had.
Yeah.
So you have 30 years of these images and this understanding of how you should dress into this whole new world. And that world is expansive for women's wear.
Yeah.
And another one of my clients, she was a 60-year-old mom going to her son's wedding. And she wanted to look really, really good. Like, there's so many emotional attachments that these people were showing me that it was so much more than just a suit or a dress. And that was the power of fashion. And then so, like, I never wanted to leave that, and I still love talking about it. And I even for myself, if I feel like crap one day, I know putting on an outfit is going to change that. And even if I don't know that and I do it, I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, I've almost been crying all day, and now I got changed into this ridiculous outfit that everyone's going to be like, what the hell is he wearing? But I look boss.
Yeah.
And I am loving it. And that is the power of fashion. And that's what people don't acknowledge because they don't know how to approach it.
Right.
So like with my podcast, I'm not a visual platform. This is beautiful that you and I are doing this, because I was like, oh my God, she's a visual platform.
Yeah.
But that's what I want to talk about, and that's what I want people to acknowledge, is that like fashion isn't something for the elite in New York and Paris and Milan. It's for everyone, and it can impact you regardless of what your budget is.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that. So during quarantine, you're at home, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Do you get up and get dressed every day and put it all
Okay.
together, or what's happening?
So when I got let off work, I got let off in April.
Okay.
And I vowed to myself, and we're probably going to get some haters here, but I'll explain myself if I have to.
This will be good.
I'm like, I vowed to myself that I would never put on a pair of sweatpants.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not saying that you're bad or you're lazy or you're unproductive if you're wearing sweatpants. I'm just saying, emotionally for me, I'm like, if I put on a pair of sweatpants and I don't have a job, that is going to lead me down a very dark path.
I got it.
And then like, even coming to the end of like finishing work, my outfits got so much more extravagant at work because I was like, you know what? I need this pick me up. And like, what? You guys gonna fire me? No. So like, I'm gonna wear this,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be boss. And it was wicked. So this entire quarantine, I have not put on a pair of sweatpants. My denim's gotten tighter, but like.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. I'm gonna buy new denim. Like, oh my God, it's happening.
I'll take you shopping.
Yeah. I know, it's wicked. Anyways, go on.
Yeah, again, fashion has been extremely important. And I think I don't know where it's going to go for people anymore. I don't know, post-pandemic, are we going to be in this new renaissance of extravagant dressing because we can finally do it? Or are we in a spot of like, who gives a crap? Because everything's, I don't know, like no one's buying heels, no one's buying dresses, no one's buying gowns or suits or anything. Like,
it's true. It's interesting your tie to mental health, right? And I see that, like how I look is a pretty good indicator of how I'm doing on the inside. So but during pandemic, like I remember when things finally opened up again and I got to go to the dentist.
Oh, how was that?
I dressed up like a predator. Like I was so excited. to go somewhere and to talk to people and have a reason to put on an outfit. Like, God, I go all out for Starbucks now because it's a big deal to have a reason to find an outfit.
Yeah. And I think it's going to take people some convincing to realize, I mean, who cares? Dress up when you're going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
Like if that's all you're doing today, like it totally transforms everything you do. And like the certain items you put on, like especially for me, they're like different personalities.
Yes.
Where, you know, I can be like the rocker or like with the Doc Martens, and like my personal style, I mix a lot of like androgynous pieces, like feminine pieces with menswear.
Yeah.
And I have to like edge that up. So I'll have like a really long flowy shirt that's a woman's top, but then I'll put like Doc Martens, or like I recently realized I wear a baseball cap a lot when I'm trying to masculine myself.
Interesting.
And I was watching a YouTuber, and he was like, yeah, I don't know. He was showing 3 different ways of wearing a skirt. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to do a baseball cap because that's what I do when I feel like I'm too feminine.
Interesting.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm not alone. Like, that's exactly what I do. So when I wear outrageous pieces, like something I'm wearing today, you can't see the full outfit, but it's a 3/4 length long t-shirt. Nice. And it's extremely drapey with a belt, and it's very Grecian. I would throw this on with my baseball cap and my leather jacket and my Doc Martens, and then I'm good.
I bet you rock that. I bet it looks amazing. Like I like your necklace too.
Okay, so this is a local designer.
Okay.
I do just want to shout her out, Kelsey Merkley.
Okay.
She is the designer of Cremsy or Never Nude.
Okay.
So this is like pressed flowers from her mother's garden. Nice. And then she has it on top of like some sort of like bronze material. But
very cool.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. And like plus again, it's kind of like mixing high and low, right? Like this is like, you know, a custom piece, but this is like Aldo. So like $5. Yeah,
I love it.
But that's the key to how to dress now is mixing high and low pieces. Mix that $1,000 bag with that $50 jacket. And
okay, so my Joe jeans and Valentinos is a thing.
You got it, absolutely.
Perfect. I bought Valentinos.
Did you?
Oh my God.
Flats or heels?
They're heels.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you worn them?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I love them. I wear them with everything. Oh yeah, to Starbucks. I'll wear them anywhere. I wore them on a scooter. With a cape, like amazing. That's awesome. I love that. So this woman that did the necklace, so let's put her contact info in the show notes as well, because people may want to know more about that. Is there anything that you want to promote before we go? Anything you're up to going?
So again, I'm just kind of, setting up, my podcast and everything. So if people would like to follow, it's Fashionably Sober.
Okay.
And that gets released twice a month.
Okay.
And I think it's a pretty good balance. So I would just, hit that up and make sure you download the episodes.
Yeah.
My manager is telling me to tell you that for like stats and whatnot. But
yes,
yeah, I
stats.
also have, and my Instagram as well, which is at Ben B Squared.
Ben B Squared. Okay, well, that'll all be in the show notes as well. So you're out of work officially?
No, I'm back at work.
You're back at work.
So this is the thing is I have never wanted to work from home. I always had a destination in the morning, and then that would be a good, kind of mental health thing for me. But now that we're, in a pandemic, I do have the opportunity to work from home. So I have chosen that, and I moved in with my partner. So I have my office downstairs now. So I'm back to work, thankfully. Well, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. I was getting really used to being off and being like, it's okay.
Yeah.
But then, everyone asks when I come back to work, they're like, how were you? And I was like, you know what? Wednesday morning, I would be like summiting a mountain. And then Thursday, I'd be crying, freaking out about my next paycheck. So like everyone's kind of dealing with this pandemic and like this like weird weird mix of emotions that we've never had to experience. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm back in the office.
Good for you. And so would you describe yourself as an extrovert or an introvert? Where do you get your energy?
I was told in treatment that I was like a social chameleon,
Mm-hmm.
where they're like, oh, you just blend in anywhere you go. And like I thought that was kind of like a character defect where it depends on how you look at it. Okay. So I could look at it as in like, oh, I'm a people pleaser. I'm not honoring my feelings. Or it can be like, listen, you can communicate to multiple types of people. And I'm sure you're familiar with it, but are you familiar with like the DISC leadership theory thing? Mm-hmm. I've taken this thing so many times through work. And every time I am one number off from each color.
Yeah, you're in the middle probably, yeah.
And then like, so my leader was like, oh, that's a sociopath. But like, I think about it and I'm like, you know what? Like, I really don't identify as a green. Yeah. I identify as a red here, but a yellow here. And I'm like, that's an amazing freaking skill.
It is incredible. It's a gift.
Mm-hmm. Right? So like that can allow me to go into rooms of AA, NA, CrossFit, Holt Renfrew, and kind of pick up on how to communicate best with the person.
Exactly. You can connect with everyone.
But I'm still honoring my feelings. I'm not going to go against my core beliefs. And if that comes up, then I'm comfortable enough, you know, flexing that red personality and being like, that's not happening now.
Yeah, I think it's a gift. You know, I remember people, I'm always an extreme of something. And so, you know, and it's wonderful in some environments, it's great. But when you need to work out of preference, it's very, very taxing. And so if you're sort of sitting in the middle and able to draw on whatever traits you need in that moment, that's phenomenal. I don't think it's a sociopath at all. I think it's a gift, especially if you go into a leadership role. You'll be able to lead people the way they need to be led. You'll be able to meet them where they are so much more quickly, readily, easier. Like, it's great. It's great.
And I think that's kind of where I'm taking my trades and flexing them in the sense of my podcast, where I don't have a demographic of like, you know, I'll have this type of person on one day, and then the next episode is going to be like this huge fashion person, then it's going to be this like really vulnerable woman, and then it's going to be this super butch guy who doesn't talk about his feelings, you know. So and I think that's helping kind of build that content.
Yeah,
and break down that barrier too of understanding that even though you might not know how to communicate to someone, like you still can find common ground. I find common ground with all my guests, but I'm not going to run into them in the place where I'm going. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? We're more alike than we are not alike. It's awesome. Good for you. Good for you. So what gives you hope during quarantine? Where do you think we're going and how do you handle it?
I think it's beautiful that quarantine has given us time to slow down. Where we have been such a society for so long of glorifying multitasking and glorifying prioritizing your needs that might not even be beneficial to you, but like superficial needs. We've been allowing that to take control of ourselves, where now you have to sit and you have to be with yourself. And that is a beautiful thing to have access to, but it's also extremely intimidating. It's ridiculously exhausting, but it's like super rewarding too.
Yeah, it's a perfect time to work through things, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think the quarantine has definitely given us a reset of realizing what's important to us. I'm going to spend more time with my family because I wasn't allowed to for a couple months. And I had to like miss my mom's birthday because my partner and I were potentially at risk of you know, COVID, and we didn't know. So I had to leave the cake that I baked my mom on her step and not see her for her birthday. But those are the sacrifices I realize that I need to make because it's for a bigger picture. And when I was in addiction, I was so selfish and so shut off from anything outside of myself that now that I'm sober, I'm like, holy crap, like I am the tiniest thing in this entire ecosystem of things I will never ever understand. So yes, I do need to have those conversations with my parents, telling them I'm not coming, because in the long term, like it's got to be worth it. It will be.
I love that. Ben, I really appreciate how frank you are. I think you're hilarious. I think you're super fun. I appreciate this time to get to know you a little bit better, and where you've come from and what you're all about. I think you're super interesting, and yeah, I love your thoughts, and I really appreciate the transition that you described from going to, just working through things, like just being true to who you are, and deciding what matters to you, and experimenting to figure out what works. And very much, it sounds like being of service to other people. So thank you for all of that. That's amazing.
Thank you. I wish I was as fit as you, because even
oh, hardly.
You would outrun me. It was okay. Can I tell you a really sad story though? Okay, so I was doing, you're gonna love this. So I joined a new CrossFit gym because I just moved into the deep suburbs. I've lived downtown my entire life for like 10 years, and now I'm in Nose Hill. So
okay.
So I joined a new gym. I'm trying to fly under the radar because I'm really like noticeable. I have a really big forehead. And so I don't want to draw attention to myself. And then so we're warming up with wall balls. And Maureen, I've done wall balls a million times.
You don't even have to. Of course you are. You're tall.
Yeah. And then so that's great. I got it. The target is a vertical beam. I throw one ball, throw it up. It doesn't hit the beam right. So it just comes down, hits me in my face. I recoil and crack my back. I haven't been to the gym in 3 weeks. I'm going to the doctor's tomorrow because like my back has been so sore. And the one thing I thought of, I was like, I burst out laughing because imagine seeing someone get hit in the face with a wall ball is the funniest thing. And I get it, but now it's like medically, I'm like, okay, something's
right. That's a drag, man. I was
like, a freaking wall ball, Benjamin. That's what takes you out of CrossFit for a month.
You know what? You could do CrossFit though. This is what I say. You can do these exercises where you're like just like, you're doing these crazy lifts and everything else. And then I'll pull something getting out of bed, and I'm like, what? What was that?
Yeah.
So yeah, like the wrong movement. I'm sorry to hear that you hurt yourself, but I'm sorry that I missed it because it would have been spectacular. I'm sure.
It's been a cool time to realize kind of like how the body can heal itself though. Like I've given myself 3 weeks. I've told myself, and this is kind of where that pressure from exercising comes from, is like, you need time off. And with that time off, my body has been recovering.
Yeah, good for you.
And that's a really cool thing to be like, cool, your body's inside like fixing itself right now.
Yeah.
Trying to.
Yeah, I have a really great physio if you need a reference to someone. She's amazing, and she's in Airdrie, so you don't have to go too far from Nose Hill.
Yeah.
Just up the road.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Ben, thank you again for your time today. It's been awesome. We got to connect again, and yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate it. I haven't been on this end of a podcast. So thank you for giving me this platform and the time to invest in my story. I really do appreciate it, Marie.
My pleasure. We'll talk soon.
Okay, take care.
Bye. Friends, thanks for listening. And if you liked this episode, please be sure to click on the thumbs up below for YouTube and comment. What did you like most? And what do you want to hear more of? I'd love to hear from you. And in case you missed it, the website is maureenTowns.com. Bye.